once you get integrated into those tools and you truly have your team integrated into them as well, I mean, they become invaluable. And for me, like I'm looking for the tools that are going to keep my operating expenses low, but do everything that I need it to do.
What is up, everybody? We are back from beautiful California. Josh is calling us in from Denver. So we're keeping it remote on all the best sense. Like, look, you're on the West Coast. I know you are normally based in the Nashi, but as always, like, let's get a little cheers going. I know you're not rocking a Brez, but you're rocking some of Johnston's delicious.
Cheers.
I mean, we have a cool episode today. So a lot of this stuff has been coming up as we're talking to some of these agencies that might have one or two services specifically, and they are in that $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 a month in fulfillment, right? Like a lot of the people talk about agency world is just a handful of things. And of the handful of things, it's new clients coming in and the fulfillment of the service that you just close them on, which oftentimes comes down to how organized you're going to be. And we learned a lot of stuff from this on Josh specifically. And so this episode might be a little bit nerdy. It's not going to be as deep dive into like the tactical things that you do on daily ops podcast, but you're going to be talking a little bit through in some of the shit that I'm seeing on the project management side of things. Because I think if we define what project management is and how we as agencies are fulfilling it, whether we as the owners or some of our teammates, but there is definitely unspoken rules and things that you should not be doing, and also things that you must make sure you are doing. So before we jump into it, Joshy, how are you feeling, brother?
Feeling great, man. We were talking a little bit before this. Is like it's just been a burner of a week. We're prepping for our event right now. We're less than 7 days away from our event, Hydra Council. So it's been a lot of fun. Like the prep is a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but feeling good, man. I'm always excited to end my week doing this because like it just fills up my cup. So excited to be here.
And with that being said, so Hydra, we did a co-post the other day because we actually started like Josh and I's relationship, although we were connected on the internet beforehand and we knew of each other in the space with referrals. We talked a little bit about us on the past partnership episodes. So if you haven't listened to that one, definitely check that one out. But we met in person at one of our geek outs, right? And that like ability to be in community and in person is like so important for us to build, especially when we're speaking the language that not a lot of people are speaking oftentimes, or you have to be in like a paid group for, this is why we do the podcast, because we are speaking the agency language, whether you're in America, whether you're abroad, it doesn't really matter. But it's really cool that you have this event coming up, which means after that event, we'll probably have to do a debrief. So definitely, I want to like, when it's over, we definitely need to do a debrief of like, hey, here's the things people are talking about or not talking about. That'd be even cooler. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. We'll make that happen.
Very cool. I want to talk about just to kick us off, like the pillars of good project management, because in my mind it immediately goes to, well, yeah, everything should be documented. SOP should be there, especially as soon as onboarding begins. But how early do you let them get a sneak peek of how project management is going to come in? Because it's got to be even post sales call into the audit system, correct?
Yeah, for sure. Well, and here's the thing: is like project management means so much on so many different levels, right? And there's so many different ways to run your project management software. But at the base level, really what project management is for is to ensure what you sold in your sales conversations with the client is what you're delivering on the fulfillment side. And so for us, like it's going to kind of help us protect for a couple things. One, make sure that we actually fulfill on our promise, but also kind of keep us in this place of this is the scope of work that we need to do for the client. And we have these boundaries built around this scope so that the classic scope creep doesn't happen with us when clients start asking for more and our team can stay really up to date. So that's kind of like where things start is like, hey, we need to have the balance between what the client actually wants and what the actual scope is. Because I do like to take a flexible approach to like our client work because like, hey, I want to deliver and I want to make sure that they're really happy with the result. So I always have this phrase of under promise, over deliver. But having that defined scope inside of the project management software, having your deliverable set up inside of the project management software, that's where it all starts. That's like the very beginning stage.
And I don't think it matters whether you're using Asana, whether you're using ClickUp, whether you're using Google Sheets. Like we've been in so many different things. Like right now, like I think last year and then beginning of last year, now where we are today, we were full Asana on one agency. Then we went to full Notion, and now we're in ClickUp. but we also have some Notion lifeline there. I know you're a bit bullish on ClickUp, but it's
Bullish.
been, dude, it's been good. We at one point we were using ClickUp as like a CRM because we're like, oh, we were moving and grooving, and Josh, you're like, whoa, bro, what are you doing here? But it got to a point where it was actually pretty smooth to use, so I wasn't freaking out on like the ability to monitor. Yes, now we're fully integrated to Go High Level. We got on HubSpot, and it's been a process of building that out, especially as lead gen starts to pick up. But why I'm so focused on talking about project management on the lead gen side of things is because as soon as contract is closed, and oftentimes I'm in that front line of we're talking to prospects. As soon as a prospect gets in, it gets automated right into my Slack channel. That Slack channel is triggered in anything that happens in ClickUp. All automations and Zapiers are coming into it. Looks like this. It looks like contract has been closed. What did we close them on? Paid media, search, email, content. Awesome. That gets into the team. Then our head of, I guess, customer success, I would say, or just more like client relations, Rebecca grabs it, assigns where the teammates need to be. And from that end, they know exactly what details, what was the past sales call. That's one of the biggest things that as a part of our onboarding system, because sometimes there's that huge issue that people usually have is, oh, dude, what you sold me on actually isn't what I'm delivering on. And there's a big issue there. Dude, when you're pushing 50 plus people and you're selling multiple services at different packages, everything is, I don't want to say more or less bespoke, but there are some uniqueness in what we're selling because each brand and business is going to be different. They have to have a place where they can go in and just click and see, this is what was sold. Here's how the sales calls went. Here's what we promised. And then from that end, we can kind of do the rest of like the downstream triggers of what project management truly is.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like 100%, it's on what you sold, but also as you start to ramp up your guys's team and the amount of clients that you have, well, now you have multiple projects all running at the same time. There's more information getting down. So having a place to organize everything just becomes so crucial to how the flow of the content is done, how the flow of how you guys run paid media is done. What's the order of operation? Because like, hey, say you onboard 2 clients a week apart. It's like, well, you can't work on the second client that you onboarded before you work on the first client that you onboard. So it's like, what is our order of operation when working with clients? So there's a lot that can be unpacked. I mean, we could go into things like time management inside of that. Like if you wanted to go into the nuances, you could talk about budget management. This is something that people don't do enough inside of their project management is like, cool, especially in creative that has a very low margin. Are you guys tracking the budgets, your models, your expenses? Are you renting equipment? Are you renting Airbnbs? What are the expenses going into that project? Because you don't know if they're 100% profitable unless you're tracking some of those expenses. So there's so much robustness to what you can do with project management, but on the most basic level, it's like track your deliverables, make sure you have a team assigned to it, and make sure it gets done on time.
So the simplest is like scope, time, budgets, and pacing, and then quality of work. Like if those are the areas that you kind of focus in, there are different people that are managing these things. Because especially say, for instance, so if we're selling email, in this, there's a lot of different people that need to touch this. The strategist is going to set strategy. When is the next call is going to be set? The designers need to understand when the marketing content is going live, and the copywriters need to touch it then. So just knowing that within one team, if that pod is running off of maybe 7 or 8 people and there's no system that they're using in this, I think one of the cool things that we'll probably do is in like an addendum to this, just do like an over-the-shoulder screen record of one of the tools that we're using. And I think that'd be a good way for them to be like, hey, here's how we recommend a lot of the teams and agencies to run our things. Because this is what we do. We have a pretty robust, nobody touch what we build on ClickUp. Like it is very, very dialed and detailed. And so I'd love to do like an over-the-shoulder, maybe not today, but probably in the future if this episode does what we expect it to do.
For sure. Yeah. And the big takeaway here too is like, there's so many features in these project management softwares. There's the automations, there's the integrations. You can have all the bells and whistles that you want, but I have this like famous phrase that I say with all my clients that simplicity scales. And if you have a really complex project management software that no one else knows how to use, chances are they're not going to use it correctly, right? So when you're building this out, try to build it in the most simple way possible without the complexities, because that's where project management tends to fail, is with complexity. And there's some other pieces in there as well. But have you ever ran project management before? Like you set up project management and it just didn't work?
Well, the issue is it's not that it's not setting it up that it didn't work. It's more setting it up, but not knowing what needs to live in there. Because It's like we're doing a lot of the day-to-day communication within Slack. And actually, perfect example. So on Constant, we have a dashboard that you need to submit. The dashboard acts as like our own internal custom built project management tool, because through submissions, there's triggers on the back end that tells designers, creative strategists, and quality control specialists to do messages or do some sort of like, hey, this is due, send it on. And that triggers. And a lot of times like, well, why can't you just Slack me it? The amount of things that happen in Slack, the amount of things that you miss is tremendous. So we actually say, if it isn't a movement in Asana or ClickUp or Airtable or whatever service and platform you're using, that is the final decision making. Because if you can't see that at one glance, then you actually don't know what's happening. And a lot of people can say, especially if you're very remote first, project manager took off even bigger. I would say obviously on site's important, but the more that we're remote, the more that we're asynced, and the more that we have different people around different time zones, project manager became that much more important, because it's very difficult. For instance, if I'm overseeing a creative team or the paid media team or even the email, and I want to know how many deliverables are going in, but I don't want to ask every individual like, hey, what are you doing this week? I should be able to see on an overview what's happening and why it's happening. That's the biggest benefit. Can you talk to me about two things? One, as the person utilizing the actual management software, and then the person that's monitoring the usage of the software. Because right now, if I'm not the one executing or utilizing it, oftentimes you're not the one setting it up. So if you have somebody, you pay a consultant come in to set up your click of how your project management should be used, but then the people that are using it aren't using the way that it was set up, what's that relationship like? Like, how do you fix that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's like internal training, because most people will set up project management and just be like, okay, the team will know the flow of how it's supposed to work. Like, you need training on project management just like any of your other systems, like how you teach people to media buy, how you teach people to do email marketing, right? They need to also be taught how to operate inside of a project management software. So there needs to be trainings involved in setting up your project management. So don't just expect like someone to come in and, you hire an ops person and, they build everything out for you. Well, make sure that there's training along with that to train the team of, hey, this is how we move tasks. This is how we update the team. And one of the biggest things, and this drives me nuts, one of the biggest things that we see is that communication is on client projects is often done outside of the project management, right? Inside of things like Slack, text messages, WhatsApp, which is such a horrible practice. And I got this phrase from Stephanie McDonald, shout out Steph Mac, that shout out. If it happens, if it doesn't happen in ClickUp, it doesn't count. And what she essentially meant by that was, if the communications aren't inside of ClickUp, I can't keep people accountable to it. I can't keep people accountable to getting their tasks done if I sent it to them in Slack message, because Slack is just like a rolling feed. It's just going to get lost in the infinite message that will come through your Slack channel. So it has to be put in project management. It has to have due dates. It has to have someone assigned to it, because there's no way to keep people accountable if that's not the case, right? And so continued trainings, because people fall out of the habits of utilizing it. Like, we try to do trainings with our team on our project management at least once a month, because we're integrating new things. Our onboarding changes, the systems change, and when those systems change, the team needs to be updated on how they're being changed.
Is that a role that owns this? Because right now, if I look at the team across the board, we don't have a process iteration specialist that just owns this specifically. We use the tool, we review it on a quarterly basis, and when that's all done, we're kind of like, okay, it seems to be working for us. And that was like my initial question is, you have it doesn't need to be a consultant. It can be the department head, it could be the department lead, whatever, that's building the playground for everyone to execute within. But it isn't at a level, or isn't at a place where it's getting used to the efficiency, or it's getting monitored how much usage is happening. Is there someone that needs to own it and seeing? Because again, that's an area that I think the bigger you get, the more you need to put more emphasis on, because that's probably where a lot of inefficiencies drop.
Well, that's a responsibility of the ops team, right? Now, at the size agency you guys are at, I don't know if it would necessarily be your COO's responsibility to keep those things measured. Now, if they had like a direct report of like an operations assistant, something along those lines, they would be able to measure some of the efficiencies and effectiveness of that. But as far as like the positions, like, it is the management level positions that are responsible for making sure that the working team, the ground team, is following the ClickUp structure appropriately. So really, it's the COO that manages the management team or your director team that says, hey, this is how the system needs to be run, and your teams need to be running it like this. So that's kind of the hierarchy of how it would work. And then as far as the trainings go, the COO trains the directors, directors train the ground team.
Well, I think that's why probably some of our initiatives in the past, in terms of adoption of project management, failed, is because the team that's executing within it on a day-to-day basis wasn't really consulted on the efficiency. And I don't think they need to be involved from the day one. I think it's like it's more of a, hey, this is how our company used to be operating. It's top down. This is what we expect from you. These are the due dates. These are the timelines. These are the expectations. Let's go use it. Put it wild. Put it living. And then all of a sudden they kind of get back and go, hey, some of this didn't really work. Some of this did. We like it. If not, how do we change it? Do you think that's probably the better way you go about it?
For sure, you have to build it alongside of the team. Now, not necessarily saying the team has to build it, but your day-to-day work, like your day laborers of like the ground team, those are the people that know the process the best. And chances are it's up here in the head. There's just no transparency on the project management side. So it doesn't make any sense for you to start at the top and say, okay, COO, you're going to go build the retention team's project management. They might not have the insights necessary to do that, right? So they need to work alongside of the team. And this is where a COO becomes the most effective, is when they can build these things called process maps. Process maps essentially let us see the workflow of the team, how it's done from beginning to end. So the time that you start with the client to the time that you offboard them. And then what we do is we take that process map of how the work flows in the client journey, and then we adopt it to the project management software. So it follows the flow of how the work is already being done.
This is so necessary, and I don't think that COO will be able to have insights into all this unless they were day one in that department, and then they've kind of elevated out of it. Because if it's a single service, and your COO is probably the most well versed tech / service wise, but when you get to the size where we're offering 4 different services, and we need someone that's like an actual good operator that's in charge of like the process of everything, they're not going to be able to know the depth of paid, depth of creative, depth of email, depth of SMS. And we don't really expect them to, but they need to be able to work in tandem of like, it's the right questions that they're asking to be able to implement, deploy, and track. That's the phase that we're at right now, because we have an incredible CEO that does 90% of this work. But as we're looking to rebuild a team, it's funny because right now on the paid side, paid and creative, we've been known for so long that we are an incredible paid team and we're an incredible creative team. And then it kind of started to flip-flop the last year and a half to 2 years, because we started pushing a lot more retention, SMS and email design, because we're looking at the market, and just like on an agency landscape, the churnability, and that is not a word, but I wish it was, the churnability, likelihood of churn has been so incredibly high on just paid media offers, just on paid search, paid Facebook. There's just been so much uncertainty. And this month alone, you log into Twitter, you log into LinkedIn, you log into Facebook, there's a comment and frustration about something somewhere. And so we go, okay, we're not trying to build and moving ground as much as we have been in the past. Let's be a little bit more reliable, and let's play within the Klaviyo send lane retention space. So we focus a lot of effort there. And now as we're shifting back into the paid media side and the creative side, we're reevaluating all the processes that come into it and how they're using ClickUp and how they're using the different sheets and tools. And we're going like, at what size does it make sense to have someone that just owns process? Email, it's more than big enough. We have plenty of people there that are in charge of that specific process. And those are those account managers specifically that roll up into head of department rolling up into the COO. But if the small enough team on the paid media side, say it's sub 15 people, now it's going to get interesting to see like how much feedback do they want to have in rebuilding the processes and workflows.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it has to be done. It's like run alongside of your team. That's what works.
Do you think outside of like choosing the tool, because it's one of the quotes I thought you were going to pull up, and I don't know if this is a Steph Mac thing too, but the tool is only as good as the person using it, right? Like you can only be a skilled laborer if you have the right tools with you and you're actually using the tools on a day-to-day basis. Is there ever a time where you're like, this platform is not working, we need to change it because the way that we are run our company, this tool doesn't work? Is that usually, that's in my experience, that is not the reason why people switch tools. They usually are looking for some sort of excuse.
No, I mean, sometimes it can be like some project managers are a little bit more robust than others. Like that's why I like ClickUp, because ClickUp can do everything. Um, and some of the other project management, like if you were to look at like Basecamp as an example, Basecamp is a really great service. They have a ton of people inside of Basecamp, but it doesn't have all necessarily like the bells and whistles. It's very minimalist. It's going to get the basic project management stuff done, which is great. Like some people will need that for their service, and whether that's an agency service or not. But no, normally people fall to the lack of system inside of the business, not necessarily to the tool. Right? The tool is just what it is. You know, it's like you have it, you have access to it, but if you don't build the system around it that actually matches the workflow, it falls flat because like if it doesn't match the workflow, the team doesn't want to use it.
Questions on like negotiating rates on this stuff, because a lot of these tools do by seats utilization. Do you think it's worth like going and nickel and dime or kind of like pushing them for different costs?
Yeah, of course. Of course. Try to get your operating expenses as low as possible. Like that's the whole goal. Like tell them, hey, we're gonna go somewhere else. And especially like a team like your Shack that you have 120 seats, 120 seats, something like that. It's like that matters. You know, they want to keep those seats. And they'll negotiate a rate with you for sure.
Yeah. Well, even dude, that's like the biggest reason why we left HubSpot. We're like, I love it. I think HubSpot is incredible for what it does, but we're looking at like the lead gen, and we're looking at the flows, and wait, go high level is how much? No seats?
One
Huh?
price. Yeah,
So
no seats.
it's like it's not even like we use it on constant, we use it on structure, and we're so close to building out that outbound system. Like it's right there. It's just a matter of deploying it and turning it on as we get the landing pages built. But it's been such a very interesting conversation around look at the operating costs and the costs you're spending on all those project management tools. Because the funny thing is, it's sexy to add all these tools and build all these processes and systems. And especially if you look at some of these other agency courses out there or communities, like they have their like go-to stack tools that they always talk about and push forward.
Mm-hmm.
To get like you have to do it.
Yeah,
But
you're playing a little bit of the affiliate game too. It's like I play that game, but you know, it's like once you get integrated into those tools, and you truly have your team integrated into them as well. I mean, they become invaluable. You know, and for me, like I'm looking for the tools that I'm going to that are going to keep my operating expenses low, but do everything that I need it to do. And that's why we made the switch to go high level and ClickUp. But like those two tools, like really, we can operate 90% of our business off those two.
yeah, I think that then you add in Google, and then you're kind of like there. Like then you have Slack, and then you're kind of like you add the setup. Like and again, this is why we love the services so much. Like the agency space is giving me every single thing that I have today in terms of how to work with people, how to talk to people. There's one new guy. I'll share. Oh, this is the last thing I'll share. This little bit of story. There's this new guy popping up. He runs our TikTok on the Brace side, and he's a young gun. He goes to USC. He's learning. He's growing. He's building, and he's done a couple of posts. So his inbound, like his lead gen, is crazy because he's got the right case studies, right? And everyone talks about the case studies. I know there's a couple of like very choice individuals that talk about case studies are bullshit. I think case studies are a snapshot in a period of time when all things went right. Like there's the story and the context around the case studies are more important than the actual like we did X ROAS in X days. That's not the point. The point is who did it, how did it happen, what is that learning, how's that knowledge? Well, when you're publicly talking about the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, that dude's got wild lead gen. And so I started messaging him. I was like, like I see his service in our Slack, and he started to slow down. Like the replies aren't really there. Like I don't really know what's happening. I don't know why it's taking forever. We haven't changed anything on our end. It's working, so we need more. So like I see how we as the brand working with his agency, coming from an agency perspective, are all of a sudden coming and going like, hey dude, like where are the things like you said you were going to get us? And I just Slack him. So I was like, look, I know you're crazy with inbound right now. You're killing it for us. But the number one thing that's most important is like that service stays the same, because if it gets worse, all it takes is like one or two bad tweets, one or two bad messages for people to be like, yeah, it wasn't for us, or so-and-so didn't do it. And so that deliverable of service and the expectations, it goes into a simple framework of WWW. What had happened, what is happening, and because of those two, what do I expect to happen next? Consistently answering these things with the tools that we use and just the communication we have with our team and clients, that's going to solve 80% of the drama you're going to be going.
Completely agreed.
Okay, so Joshy, it's been real. I know next week you're going to be getting ready for the Hydra camps. I cannot wait for the feedback. I'm very, very jealous I can get it because, dude, I'm neck deep in diapers, dude. Look at this. Look at this. I'm a
Mode.
diaper collector, guys. I'm 1 week in. Look at this. This is literally, these are just diapers, man. So I'm learning. It's been an absolute grind. I can't wait to share a little bit more with the community else. I'm moving dad mode. I'm moving to agency mode, and just very grateful for all that listen and care of what Joshy and I talked about. But I'll see you guys on the next one. And Josh, I'll see you soon.
Peace.